Of course, we cook on the caboose.
Margaret Powell remembers what it was like growing up in Cayman. In her day, most cooking was done on a caboose. To many from her generation, it was just a way of life.
We didn't have no stoves, didn't have a stove until 1970. And so all my childhood, we cooked on the caboose.
Most families had what's called a cookroom, an outdoor kitchen separate from the main home, with the caboose serving as the stove. Keeping the cooking area outdoors kept heat and smoke away from the main living areas and reduced the risk of fire spreading out of control. Over time, the caboose became more than just a tool for cooking. It became a center of daily life and social interaction. Families would gather around to prepare meals, share stories, news, and gossip, which of course helps maintain community bonds.
You know, the children don't know anything about cooking the way that we did before.
Another method used, especially for baking, was to bury food in a pot in the ground.
Oh, we didn't have any ovens. So we dug a big hole in the ground and put the logwood in there because the logwood would retain the heat better and it would have big chunks of coal.
This method required patience, skill, and an intimate knowledge of fire and heat.
I don't know how they knew when it was cooked, but we just took it off and it was perfectly cooked. Even custard top cornbread we cooked in that. But that was our oven. Even breads. We did breads in that also, in the ground.
Today, Margaret's going to share with us a traditional recipe of making cassava cake, the way she was taught as a little girl, but using a modern oven.
Well, you have to harvest the cassava, peel it, wash it, and then you grate it. And the grater is made from an oil pan, and you just grate the cassava. And I'll demonstrate that. And from this is the product of all of that of grated cassava. There's 2 pounds of cassava actually. It's all grated. And you feel it, that there's no lumps in it, because little pieces could have fallen off it during the grating, and it's perfect. Then 2 cups of sugar, and then I will add my butter to this. Normally we used to use margarine, but I use the butter now. Then I'll take the spoon and rub this all together. Let's get the sugar mixed into this cassava meal. Perfect. Then I'll add my cinnamon, allspice, and nutmeg, which I've mixed together here, and I'll add 1 tablespoon of that. Sprinkle it in. Make sure this get all dissolved in here. My salt is next. Just a teaspoon of salt, and shake it in there. Just ensure you mix all the ingredients together before we put in the coconut milk. And now my vanilla. We're going to use a 1/4 cup of this.
And you used to do this Saturdays?
Every Saturday. Saturday morning, matter of fact, because it had to cool. It takes a while to cool. And then we baked it outside in the ground with the coals, so it took a little longer to bake than the regular stove now, because you had to regulate the coals on top of it, that it didn't burn. Okay, so mixture is finished, ready for the coconut milk. Now we're going to make the coconut milk, the main ingredient for the cake. When I was a child, we had to grate this like I did the cassava, but now we have a blender, so I'm going to blend it. I'll just pile it all in here. I don't cut it up small, it just goes in big. And I'm going to strain it to get the milk. It's very important that it's at this consistency, that it is perfectly grated. So I'm going to squeeze it out. The first milk that you strain from this is the milk that you're going to use. I'm going to use 5 cups of coconut milk in this. Always stir it up that you'll have it completely mixed together. So it's 1. I'll do the 4 and just see how the consistency of the cake, because it has to be sort of loose but not too loose. See, look, that is still a little bit thick, so I'm going to add just a little bit more coconut milk, because this is when the cassavas get softer. If you put it too thick, then it's going to have a very hard consistency when it's baked. So a good rule of thumb is just lifting it up and looking at it. So I'm going to use about another half a cup in this. That's it. Normally, my grandmother would have boiled this with the sugar and the margarine, but I find that it's easier for me to do it with the raw coconut milk because it's easier to cook. If you did the boiled one, you had to wait for this to become room temperature in order to put it in the cassava, unless it would lump up. So I do it like this and it comes out beautiful. Now we're going to bake it, but I would never had this tin when I was a child. But for convenience, more crust, I do it in these aluminum tins now. So I'm just going to pour this in here. And this goes in the oven on 350, and it will bake for, I said 2 hours. Okay, the cake is all finished. 2 hours baking. Watch that, all the crust. Look at it. That's what everybody wants. The cassava cake, a lot of crust. Totally enjoyable.
In a world of modern convenience, these methods of cooking remain a cherished part of Caymanian heritage.
Those days it was a struggle to just get things together, but we lived in a community that we shared. We shared everything. So allowing my grandchildren and my children to know about where we came from, where we are now, it's key importance, because that's their foundation. We lived sharing. It was bottlers or cassava or pumpkin, and we would share it. So it wasn't about who had the most money, it was just about who had it and who could share it. We made cakes from everything.
So why is it important to teach these recipes to our younger generation? Well, the answer lies in every bite, a taste of history and a reminder of the warmth and community spirit that food can bring.